All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for a special edition, the Thanksgiving three-gamer, favorite slate for many out there, I know. So going to break all things down from the three-game perspective. It's a staggered slate. We're going to go position by position on this one so we can talk through it and how it plays out, roster construction, what we think other people are doing, and how you could build your lineups differently to find your way to the top. Tournaments, very top-heavy and very large this week if you're playing something like the $5 Millie Maker, so we'll get there as we go through it. But Hoop, Title here with me as always. And Hoop, going to bring you in first, man. What's going on? Happy early Thanksgiving to you and everybody else out there, as well as my friend Title that we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you and everyone. Yeah, hopefully, a day that you're able to spend some time with family, friends, whatever you do. Watch some football, obviously. If you're watching the show, I'm assuming you'll be tuning into some football. Unfortunately, the games don't appear to be super appealing, but, it's always fun to be able to chill, sit back, eat some food, have some drinks, beer, whatever it may be, wine, mixed cocktail, and watch the games. We're going to go through, try to find some path to victory lane here. And then our content is already starting to go up, and all of it will be up nice and early for you guys to digest it. And we have some deals that we'll discuss as well for Black Friday in terms of our pricing. So excited to be here, excited to talk some football and see what we can find in terms of this three-game slate.
Yeah, I said beer, said wine, said everything but a shoey over there. But hey, we'll get to that.
Actually, tomorrow could be the day because I will be. I'm going to start. The Lions are 12:30 Eastern time start, and I will be cracking a beer at that time. And so tomorrow could be the day. So stay tuned.
Yeah, double down. That'll be the one. Title, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing well. Thanksgiving, always one of my favorite slates. 3 games, staggered time, so late swap is very much in play. There's 2 games with the same total of 48. 1 game not many want to play outside of a couple pieces in the Dallas Giants. I was excited to get the stud Drew Lock news in for Tommy DeVito. Always love seeing his clip at the end of the third quarter, jamming, rapping with the Broncos. Brings a little swag to the team. I'm excited for that. But, yeah, it's an interesting slate. Hoops Lions are on it as huge favorites. Good luck getting them right, but it adds more pieces to it. The Dolphins-Packers game, interesting. There's no really weather on the slate. But Roth has it yellow, and he says it feels like 20 degrees. And we'll get to the Tua and stuff like that. But, yeah, Tua in the cold has never been too great. But ownership, we obviously play an ownership game. That looks like the only thing. Weather, obviously, the other 2 games inside a dome. But, yeah, 3 games, late swap is big, staggered time, and everyone enjoy it with the family, friends. But, hey, money to be made.
Yeah, the Young Jeezy clip, man. That's the best one. Our guy, Drew Lock. This is funny, though. Like, this got said a lot in our Discord. I know people are bringing it up, but you just hit on it, so I'll stick with you for 2 seconds before we get to everything else here. Just how does that flip the slate? Because obviously we're ready to talk through it and go in there, but same price as DeVito was, same kind of ownership. It wasn't like DeVito was going to be heavily owned or something like that. It's still sort of the same setup, the same spot for the most part, but I guess other people just think Drew Lock is really good, so they'll at least good enough. So what was your thoughts on that, Title? What do you think?
The line was 4, went to 3.5, so a little respect to Drew Lock, and that's what I expected too. I do agree with Lee Price. What? What's so funny?
That's funny. The half a point line movement is like, do people really think this is slate changing?
I don't know.
They're going to move the football. I think Drew Lock's definitely a better quarterback than Tommy.
Boy. This has Will Levis vibes all over it again.
People want him. Look at our guy Keith Vape. I'm sticking with 2 quarterbacks only, Locke and Williams. Forget the other guys.
He's done it in the NFL multiple times and had game-winning drives. And, at the end of the day, there's a lot better quarterbacks out there. But what? There's Caleb Williams on the slate. There's Cooper Rush on the slate. There's Tua in the cold. And, yeah, you can go Goff and Love, and they're going to get some ownership. But, yeah, I think you can pick holes in every quarterback and play every quarterback. When we get to ownership, nobody wants to play the Giants on this slate. So I look at it as an upgrade. I think it definitely is.
If Cowboys lose, shave my head, it comes down to conviction with Locke's ability. I think that's true. What about this, by the way, Hoop, as I kick it back to you to get your thoughts on it? You could take the dong bong. This is how you could get away with it. Pour it into the shoey and then pour the shoey into the mouth, and then everybody would get a little dong bong action with the shoey on top.
I would have potential accessibility to the dong bong tomorrow because I will be with my mother-in-law who is currently in possession of the dong bong. So like, again, like the day, it's impossible though, like as we've talked through this, to get away with the dong bong as punishment because that is living with you forever. I mean, imagine Hoop with a 12-inch dong, and I mean the circumference of this thing is massive, in my mouth doing a beer. Like I would never get away from that. Like zero escaping. I'd like to do it in replacement to the shoey. I'll be honest. I'd rather do the dong bong than the shoey. There's no doubt about it. Like 100%. I'm like a germ kind of guy in some regards. I'd 100% do the dong bong over the shoey if there was not social media and long-term ramifications.
Hoop's going to go to the store and buy a pair of kicks fresh and dump it in, and that's going to be a shoey. So I got these brand new sneakers, lacing them up first, pour the drink, and then shove it down. But that's the germ side of it. But go ahead, Hoop. I mean, you can give your grand scheme overview. I guess we could start it there. I'll get into the promos in a second. But just with the lock, in regards to the lock news that was brought up, like you said, you don't seem to think it's slate changing at all. It just doesn't change a thing for you, right?
No, it doesn't change anything for me. Like, well, I think it's the same. And I think, my guy Nades, we've battled on here a little bit, gone back and forth with the jokes, but I think he's right. Like the Giants don't want to win. Like they're not in the business. And I don't know if it's like a hot take when we get to that game, or we're not going game by game. We'll talk about it as the show goes on, but I just have a very strong opinion about that game specifically and some of the plays in it. So, I don't think it really changes anything. Like there's another, really, all the quarterbacks are relatively cheap. I mean, we have other options. Like, to me, I don't think it's going to be Drew Lock. But again, you guys have been able to talk me into things throughout the show. I did actually just buy a new pair of New Balances. The new style, actually, not too bad. And you seriously feel like you're walking on clouds. These boys are nice. I'm telling you, it's like the standard gray ones, but they're like they're beefed up a little bit, and those things are legit. But like I don't know. I guess long story short, with the Drew Lock thing, it doesn't change anything for me. Like this team wants the first pick, nothing to play for, and I think Dallas has a different mindset. So I don't know. It doesn't change much for me.
All right, we'll get there. The site's up. Just going to show you guys quick. We do have a Black Friday special. Just launched it today, early Black Friday. If you're not a member yet and you want to get in on the action, we're going to show the stone, bring up some of the stuff we got going on. Hoop mentioned it. We're going to have all of our content up early for everybody to take it in so that they can spend tonight with their family and get everything done tomorrow with family as well and be ready to watch these games. But you can use code BF50, gets you 50% off your first month all access. So $34.50 or $49.50 if you want Shiptimizer. And then as far as football goes, if you go to Join the Nation and click Single Sport, you can get the rest of season for $99 or $129 with Shiptimizer. And that gets you right through playoffs, includes Super Bowl Sunday, and there's no code or anything required. You just click Join the Nation on the screen here. Go here, Join the Nation, click Single Sport, and you'll be all set to go there. Let's bring up the stone. And Hoop, I'm going to stick with you then. You said you had some thoughts on certain things, and we'll get there when we go position by position. But just as a whole, I guess it is a good idea. People still like to sort of hear the rundown of how you see the games playing out, or how you would lean into where you're going to make your decisions based on what you think happens in these games.
Yeah, so we're not going to go game by game, but I'll just touch on kind of what I anticipate to happen in each game, and then we'll get into position by position. Maybe Tyler can go through and give his opinion. But like the Lions, I mean, Title has again a different opinion than I do on this. Best team in the NFL, I think it's pretty clear, and I don't give a fuck what his eye test says because like they're making it deeper than the Ravens. There's no doubt about it.
How about that last game, man? Not beat down, but Chargers backdoor to 7. But hey, Derrick Henry and Lamar's a problem.
They beat them. They absolutely beat them, no doubt about it. But Lions are very good. They're favored by 10. They can do it any way they want. We've seen it the past couple of weeks. If they want to pound it with the run, they can do it that way. If they want to beat you by the pass, they can do it that way. And there's been games where they've done it both ways, and everyone's kind of gotten there. A lot of times in DFS, when you see a spread of 10, it's a spot for people to maybe avoid, and they don't want access to it. And Lions are willing to continue to put it up if it's available. They're at home. It's on Thanksgiving. Bears are it's a division game for the Lions. They're projected to score 29 points. Probably their standard, honestly, for the rest of the year. They're probably going to be projected to score between 28 and 30. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Their offense is so good, so dynamic, and it's a really good spot. And I think you want exposure. It's hard. It's a very hard team to predict. I mean, someone mentioned it. It really is, because Is it going to be Amon-Ra? Is it going to be Jamison Williams? Laporta has really done nothing this year, but his price is now cheap. You have 2 running backs that get a lot of work, but it's a smaller slate. Like if they score 4 touchdowns, it could easily be Gibbs and Montgomery that each get 2. So I know that question always pops up, like, can you play 2 running backs from the same team? And when you're talking about the Lions, I think absolutely you can play both these guys on a small slate. I mean, the price is getting up there, but weird things can happen on a small 3-game slate, especially when we have a game where the total is 37. So a very low game that could potentially be ugly. The joke in the chat earlier in the Discord was about, little Tim Patrick at 3.5K. I will be playing. He just does really good. What I've realized with him, obviously I've watched basically every minute of the Lions this season. He does really good on these breakaway plays where, Goff doesn't go out of the pocket much and roll out, but when everything else is covered and Goff does escape pressure, like, he I don't know if he's looking to Tim Patrick, but that's where Tim Patrick has had success, and he's at 35. On the Bears side, they have 3 potential pass catchers, all pretty cheap. Moore, Allen, Odunze. Have to imagine they're playing from behind. Caleb Williams really cheap too at 5.3, kind of backdoored that big game last week. The Giants Cowboys, I'm going with my guy Nades here, and I actually have already bet this, and I think I'll end up betting more. I'm not a huge sports bettor, never said to be one, but I think this is a slam dunk spot for the Cowboys. Like, I think Cowboys at home, it's 2 teams going not in a different direction, but the Giants don't have interest in winning football games. Like, they're done. Like, they're on to now Drew Lock, who I guess some people think is an upgrade. I don't. Like, they're not in the business of winning football games. They're going number 1 pick. Dallas, obviously out of playoff contention, but too much pride. They still want to win these football games. They still want Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones wants to win football games. Talking about a freaking contract extension for Mike McCarthy. Like, how stupid is that? So I think Dallas wants to win. The Giants aren't interested in winning. To me, this spread should be like 7, to be honest with you. I think Cowboys should be favored by 7. They're favored by 3.5. I already bet it. I'm going to bet more. Our guy Nades is in the chat kind of thinking the same thing. I'll end up putting a lot of money on this game. And like I said, I think it's the best bet since the Jake Paul bet. We really planted our flag with Jake Paul. Plant my flag tomorrow with Dallas as a very solid bet. It's 3.5 now. First time I bet it, I just did the alt line and took it down to 3. A little security there going with the 3. But again, we're not big into endorsing sports bets, but I really like Dallas. Cooper Rush at 4,800. He's put up 19 and 20 fantasy points in the last 2. Finally getting some continuity with this offense. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is a really solid option. Schoonmaker, and then we've talked about Spanford at tight end. Rico Dowdle getting all the work. He had like 20 touches last week. So I think Dallas is in a really good spot, fantasy. And if you want to bet on the game, really like Dallas to really beat the hell out of the Giants. And then the last game, Miami and Green Bay, 2 offenses that can get it done for sure. I guess injury situation on Green Bay with Romeo Doubs out. Now Wicks at 4,200 will probably be one of the more popular plays just because of the price tag. Bo Melton at 31. Don't sleep on him. He randomly gets like deep looks from Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, and then Josh Jacobs coming off the big game. I have a feeling the Miami stuff is going to go a little overlooked maybe on the slate. There's this thing with Miami playing in cold weather cities where they can't produce. I'm not putting too much stock into that just because it's a 3-game slate, and I don't think you can really be all that picky with weather situations and teams playing in colder conditions. So I think Miami is a very interesting team on the slate because outside of Jonnu Smith, I think a lot of it has the potential of getting squeezed a little bit. So breakdown there, thoughts on each game, and then we'll go through and talk position by position.
Yeah, I think you did a good job for both of us kind of covering that. But Title, I'll give you a chance just if there's anything else between those games. Obviously, we'll get to position by position, but just anything else you wanted to add on top of all the breakdown Hoop gave?
It just looks really like the first game. Lions are going to get a bunch of ownership at various positions because they're implied for a ton of points. They put up a lot of points always, and they spread it around. Gives Montgomery both minus 175 to score. Jacobs the best at minus 180. Definitely can play both together. Bears side, though, Caleb Williams is cheap. We'll get some ownership. Looks like Keenan Allen's really the only one after that. Caleb Williams, 9.5-point dogs. Been using his legs a lot lately. 31.5 rushing prop. And you compare him with a lower owned Moore, a Dunze. Swift's going to be a little low owned. So I think Bears is a spot for low ownership. The next game, both Cowboys and Giants, I think almost everybody on the Giants is going to be low owned on a 3-game slate, like in that $5 lotto when I'm trying to win it all with as few as possible. You have to get crazy. I just naturally will play the lowest owned team, and I'm glad it's Drew Lock and not DeVito. I do think he's better. I won't give takes. I'm not betting either side. Hoop has been money. Go with the Cowboys side.
You're coming on board with Dallas.
No.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not going against Drew Lock, baby. Come on, Drew Lock. I can't do it.
That's his hedge.
Cowboys side, we'll get into it, but Rico's going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. How do you leverage Rico chalk? It's because of his price and his usage last week. How do you leverage it? You play Cooper Rush in the passing game. CD will have ownership, but people won't play Cooper Rush there. And I think more will be willing to play Lock, which also lowers Cooper Rush's ownership. So obviously that second game's low owned, lowest total. Packers, Dolphins. Packers are going to get some ownership, but yeah, the no Dobbs is huge. And great shout from Hoop about Melton. Him and Wicks were pretty much just splitting the snaps last week. Now they both will be rotating in. Wicks is going to be way, way higher owned. I do think Bo Melton's interesting. Watson, Reed as well. Tight ends loaded, so Kraft there. Dolphin side, I don't think people really want to go to the Dolphins outside of Jonnu, who's been a beast, and a chain. So if you want to get Dolphins passing game low owned, you don't believe in the weather stuff, you can do that. So Lions, Packers, I guess, the two chalkiest teams on the slate, and I think there's individual low owned pieces we can target.
Yeah, I love this stack ranking on these Packers too, baby. Let's get lucky. 777 over here. We got 777, and I like those calls. I think the Melton one's interesting. I also think Watson, if everyone's going to decide between Reed and Wicks, for good reason, he's cheaper, but $700 more. Watson's a deep shot guy. It has to happen.
That drop was so bad. Whatever it was that last week. Oh, yes, gosh.
Awful.
Yeah.
Another guy, man, I know this is like getting sidetracked a little bit, but man, how the hell do the Chargers keep rolling out that Quentin Johnson? That was the worst stretch of a receiver I think I've ever seen in the NFL. That was beyond pathetic.
That was terrible.
Quentin Dropson, he could not keep a ball in his hand. That was bad. So I just think, little things like that is what I'll be looking at. I did not expect to see a couple things. One was the ownership being lighter on these Dolphins. I think, that's kind of one of the more condensed offenses in a big total with a close spread. That's kind of what you're looking for on a 3-game slate. And then even, I don't know if I fully believe this. We'll have full updates by tomorrow, but either of you guys, did anyone have a take on these Giants? Because it's showing much more than I expected on Neighbors and Tracy, I guess, based on this slate for ownership. Do you think it's in or around there, or do you think they come down quite a bit once you get through looking at some of these other spots?
I think Tracy will be used as a leverage play, so maybe a little less than we have, but I do think a lot of people will embrace they want to win it up top with as few people as possible. They see Rico being very popular. How do you get different? Go to the other side of that game. So I think it might come down a little bit. And then the Neighbors, I know I'm hyping up Lock a little bit, but his concentrated target share and a pivot in the CeeDee Lamb stuff there, I do think that Neighbors one's probably right. And I still have interest at that price too.
Yeah, I hope that's true. What is it, Sean? 30%? That was 30% dead teams right there.
With Neighbor?
Yeah.
There was a real narrative.
I
heard him after the game talking shit, and he was saying, you got to talk to Dabs. He said, it ain't me. I've been lost. Why are you waiting this long to get me the ball? And then Tyreek I know he's got a little Q tag or whatever, but he's got a squeaky wheel narrative as well. He was quote posting shit where people were like, why don't you throw it to everyone but Tyreek? He said, yeah, throw it to me. He's right on top of that. And two more little things, and then we'll go to the quarterback position with you, Hoop. One is, how do you get different on the Rico Dowdle stuff? You play Zeke on Thanksgiving, because if they're really going to smash him, and he always hops in the little bin and does.
He's always ready to eat.
Yeah, try it out. That Jerry Jones, the chat's already talking about it. They're just going to try and smash this team in, and that's their one cool thing all season. But we beat the Giants with backup on Thanksgiving. Oh, congrats. They
want that, though. That's what I'm telling you. That Dallas wants that. They want it. That is big for them, and they want it. They're a bad team, but they want this, man.
I agree. I agree.
I think the Giants do too, though. I think Dave and those Giants and Locke. Locke's not going to go out there and try and lose. No.
Not enough. No, not enough.
Mike McCarthy's going to find a way to lose. Actually, I don't want to. You put a lot of money, so I don't want to say
Giants down their left tackle too. I think they're down their left
They're
tackle.
like the favorite to get the number 1 pick. Like they're down to their 3rd quarterback.
But these quarterbacks don't go out there and try and lose. Like no one's.
I'm not saying that. I'm definitely not saying.
Like the coaches the GMs might want to. These players are not going to go out there and try and lose the game.
No,
they can put the players at a disadvantage for sure if they want.
Yeah, Drew Lock's a gamer, dude. That's why I'm with title on that part. He's gonna go out and try and shove. Yeah. The problem is it can get shoved back pretty quickly, and then that's a problem for him, and it's a problem for the slate if it's the Dallas D at 3,100 because they're gonna be very high owned based on this as well. Yeah. And then as I kick it to you for quarterback, first give me your final thoughts on my just other nugget that I saw here, a little tidbit, was the Q tag David Montgomery, which Campbell's always good with the coach speak. Sounds like it's gonna be all good. This is the revenge game kind of former Bear. And doesn't Montgomery just always crush on Thanksgiving too? Like this is another spot for him. Yeah. Maybe he gets a couple. And I think people were already primed up for Gibbs, and the Q tag will scare them away. But if Montgomery's good, he's good, and it's a 3-game slate, so I'm fine playing them both. It's a short slate, like you said, but I would prefer if he's going to be way lower. I just like Montgomery anyway. He always looks good.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been situations where Dan Campbell has misled us by, and I think like Montgomery, it wasn't anything significant. Like, did he come back? I can't remember the exact situation, but it's not like he was down on the field and couldn't move.
Came back, if
I'm pretty sure he came back. Yeah, so he's good to go. Dan Campbell said he's good to go, and I think it is a good situation between those two because a lot of people, that Q tag is still there. People are going to start building. This is a slate where people will start building early. They're going to see the Q tag and say, oh, you know what? If Montgomery's questionable, I'll just go to Gibbs. I think getting in on Montgomery makes a ton of sense, like a ton of sense. And what we're showing the ownership at, what do we got on there?
It's like 30-ish. It's not low, but it's not super high.
I think it does end up wider. I mean, between the two, I think it's more than probably a 10-point gap between the two. So I really like Montgomery as a play, and obviously like Gibbs. And yeah, Montgomery is very tough. Revenge situation here with Chicago. Game script should fit them pretty well. Playing with a lead, they're favored by 10. So really like the spot for Montgomery. So that's a good call. And yeah, that Q tag is still sitting next to his name.
Dable better hope he got the same picture as Mike McCarthy has at the head office to keep his job because that ain't gonna last very long either. I thought he was gonna be fired after last week. It's been a bad scene. Like got to move on. I guess now they just let it go though, because like you said, they're just trying to move on, get the pick. So, all right, Hoop, talk to us about these quarterbacks, man. We got 6 of them. We already talked Drew Lock. You hit on some of the pieces when you went through the game breakdowns, but where are we at here going into this slate quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that Title and I have agreed on so far, and most of the stuff we've disagreed on, is the quarterback position. There's nothing that really stands out as being like a super strong play, like I got to play this guy. So whenever that is the case, I think it's going to get spread out, and probably even more so than what we're showing. We got Caleb at 20. We got Goff at 21. We have, Drew Lock's not in there yet, but he's going to probably be the lowest owned. Cooper Rush, at 10, 14. So everyone to me is going to be probably between like 10 and 22, I'd say, somewhere in that range. So there's not like one guy that's going to be 40% owned. It makes it very easy if you want to get like way overweight on someone you feel better about. I have a feeling the way this is set up, and we can get your guys' take on it, that Tua is the one that gets squeezed a little bit. He does have similar upside to all these guys, but I think people really buy into this Miami in cold weather stuff. And I think he gets squeezed a little bit. And man, he's got 3 legit targets. He's got, Tyreek Hill refound the connection with Waddle last week, which we talked about on the show. And then Jonnu Smith has established himself as a very solid receiving tight end. So I think he's the one that has a chance to get, maybe a little bit squeezed. But the one this Dallas team could absolutely sink me tomorrow. But I like the Cooper Rush 4,800. You can do a lot. Like you can do a lot with Cooper Rush at 4,800. You have top wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb. He's established a good connection with him. Got a cheap tight end in Schoonmaker. A lot of people are going to be playing Rico because he's cheap and the workload. And then you got another tight end that you can play. We talked about a little bit last week, Span Ford, on the field a ton. I think Title said like 50% of the snaps he's on the field. Schoonmaker caught the big touchdown last week. Could have easily been Span Ford. So you have 2 tight end plays. You have CeeDee Lamb, and then you have some cheap wide receivers that you can pair him with on a 3-game slate. Tolbert, Turpin, and then is Cooks playing?
Yeah, Cooks should be back.
Yeah, so I don't know. He's still on the IR. I just want to pull that up. Limited participant. So they'd have to activate him. But to me, the Cooper Rush stuff stands out. Gets you the ability, a lot of flexibility with roster construction. You can get Amon-Ra St. Brown in there. You can get some of the higher priced guys on the slate if you want by going to a guy like Cooper Rush. So I'm very interested in the Cooper Rush stuff. Goff, Caleb Williams. I don't know. I do typically like to narrow it down a little bit on these smaller slates, but at the quarterback position, a little bit tough for me. I'll probably fade Drew Lock, who I do think is going to end up getting people. Whenever someone new emerges on the slate as a play, like people get excited to play him. So I do think he ends up probably getting in this group, probably 10-ish% or so, maybe more. And I'll just probably avoid that situation. I just can't get on the Giants, especially with Neighbors looking like 30% owned. Even if it's 25, like I just think he's substantially worse than the other spends on the slate. So probably won't get to that, but I'm interested to some degree in the other five, like the Caleb Williams stuff starting to run a little bit. They're playing from behind. I think, he has capable guys to throw it to. Jordan Love, I mean, there's so many options when you stack Jordan Love. You can go Reed, Watson, Wicks, Melton, Tucker, Kraft, and you can play multiple of those guys. You can do a lot of crazy stuff on a 3-game slate. So I am interested in the Love stuff. It all makes sense to me when you start looking at stacking these quarterbacks with their pass catchers besides the Giants situation. So I'll probably play 5 of them. My big stand will be Cooper Rush.
Yeah. So Title, before I kick it to you, this is the thing. Like, I would believe the Giants stuff, like even if Neighbors does stay, like you said, and I believe you made a good case for it. I could see that. I still believe it would be like a lower Drew Lock. People are just fine with using him at 7,100, fitting him in across from Dowdle, et cetera, the squeaky wheel, all those things. I don't believe the 201 as much as what Hoop was saying, because I actually think when it's a condensed offense on the left side here with the Dolphins versus the Packers, you have so many ways to go. I can see a lot of this 25.6 skating over here because people now know you can stack him with Achane, who's getting ownership. People know if you're going Tyreek, if you're going to get the full upside out of him, you probably want him with Tua. And we know people are definitely playing Jonnu Smith. So it's not really about who I want to play as much as just saying, I just think the ownership looks about right, except I could see some of the ownership go up on Tua for the condensed offense, the high total, the close spread. And when people really look at like the Love side, is it, they already might want to be playing Jacobs. We see the ownership there. Is it Reed, Watson, Wicks, Melton, Kraft? It gets a little bit harder to figure out. And I really like Hoop's call on the Cooper Rush stuff. And you hinted at it earlier too, Title, just saying like a way to leverage it up. So I'm definitely interested. Maybe it gets a little late steam, but don't really care. Rush, Lamb, pick somebody else with it. You could just roll those two and fill it out elsewhere. So I've got some interest in that spot as well at 4,800. What's your takes here at quarterback?
Yeah, I think one of the closest, like in terms of ownership, that we've had on a 3-game slate that I can remember in a while. Usually it just feels like we have one quarterback that is by far ahead of the rest, and that's not really the case that we have. So Caleb Williams is my favorite. There's no doubt about that, because in a dome, 9.5-point dogs, has been using his legs. Like, the Lions should score points if they're from behind. Caleb Williams with 48 minutes to chuck the ball and run the ball, garbage time opportunities, his price tag. And you also, what I like is Cole Kmet, like tight ends loaded today on this slate. Like most slates it's been, it feels this year. Running back's been great, tight end's been great. I look at it both the same way. Receiver isn't necessarily weak, but relative to the other positions, I do think it's the weakest. You can play Caleb Williams with Swift because he can catch passes. Revenge game also will be low owned. Caleb Williams has the rushing upside. So if you just want to go like eat Keenan Chalk and then pick a Dunze, Moore, Kmet, etc., there's plenty of ways to go. So I do think he's the highest owned quarterback. It's still what I'm going to be in. Like, I think he's the best play. 26%. I'm not worried about. I like it a lot. Lions side, you have to play Goff, it feels like, because Goff leverages off of some Gibbs-Monty ownership as well. We've seen games where Goff airs it out. He gets the 3 touchdowns, 300-plus yards. If that's the case, you're going to need him. And again, Laporta, like not low owned, but tight ends loaded. Jameson Williams, not very high owned. No Raymond gives Patrick a boost. Can play Amon-Ra. Neighbors getting ownership. Lamb getting ownership. Of course, he will too. Or you can play Goff with Gibbs. So many ways to go. The first game is definitely my favorite. I mentioned all the Drew Lock stuff. I like the Drew Lock stuff more in terms of one-off pieces that it does for a Tracy, a Neighbors, a Theo Johnson, a Lamb, a Rico, because I think it keeps the game more competitive. But comparing him to Caleb Williams at the price tag and going back and looking at some of Drew Lock's games, he hasn't really flashed that upside. I will be looking at props. I don't see it yet. And I'll go to the Cowboys side. It's kind of the same stuff. Again, if I'm playing 150, which I am playing the $5, I think you should probably play all 6 quarterbacks. If you can build more competitive lineups in the field with them, you can make a case for them all. Most people are probably watching 10 or less. I don't love the Cooper Rush stuff relative to the slate because I do think when you go Cooper Rush, people will go CeeDee Lamb and probably Schoonmaker. Jalen Tolbert would by far be my favorite way to go if I'm going Cowboys or if I'm going Cooper Rush. He's on the field almost 100% of the time. He's overpriced, which keeps his ownership low. But yeah, it hasn't been great for him by any means. Cooper Rush, CeeDee Schoonmaker, that's what most people will do. It does leverage off of Rico, and Cooper will be low enough owned. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'd rather then go to the quarterbacks that are the 3rd and 4th lowest owned, Jordan Love and Tua. For all the stuff you said about Tua, I mean, look at his past 2 games. Look at what the Dolphins have been doing. You can play him with A-Chain, or you cannot play him with A-Chain, leverage a little off. A-Chan, I know that's how you say it. My brain's programmed. Tyreek Hill, Waddle, can play them both. Jonnu Smith's been a beast. You can play just 2 of them. Like I said, you can play him with A-Chain, etc. So I'm going to embrace the Tua stuff. Again, 21 points they're implied for. That's a lot. And Jordan Love, I mean, kind of like what you said, you compare him in a bazillion different ways. Kraft's been good. Wicks, Watson, Reed, Bo Melton's very much in play. I know our man Newens mentioned Malik Heath. He might get some routes. I think that's a little too far out there for me. I'd prefer Showdown, which we will have content for the Packers-Dolphins game in that. But you can play Love in so many different ways, and it leverages off of some Josh Jacobs chalk. Of course, you can't play them together. It's a 2-game slate. But I think there's enough ways to play the 4 best quarterbacks by far, Goff, Williams, Tua, Love, and enough different pairings where if I'm playing 10 teams or less, I probably won't play the Rush Lock stuff. I know I hyped it up a little bit. Rush leverages off of Rico. I do think Drew Lock makes them better, but I'll play more individual pieces in that game and play the 4 quarterbacks in my 20 entry max and stuff and less stuff.
And where do you put the Drew Lock stuff then?
Yeah, no, Drew, I'm not playing in 20 teams or less. I'm not.
I was teasing you. I was you're not putting them in those ones, but
quick reversal. We like that title. Learned. You learn quick. Quick learner.
He'll be in my 150. I hope I ship with Drew Lock. Come on.
I really do too, because that'd be amazing for content. The one thing I will say, the slate's not. I wouldn't say tricky. It's fun, but man, this slate could be over before it starts. Like this first game, it also has so many ways it can go. I know the chat was talking about the overstack, but you could actually see something like you could see Goff, Tim Patrick, or Jameson Williams and Laporta with like Odunze on the other side. I know everybody wanted Odunze last week because it was Keenan Allen was just coming back from injury, and it ended up being Moore and Allen, but it could be like Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, Laporta, Odunze, and if you don't have that, you're in trouble on the slate with 2 full games to go, but gets a little tricky when it's a shorter slate like this. So I think that's what makes it most interesting to have these pieces in this game and overstack it. You can overstack from the Caleb Williams side, pick a couple of receivers, or even stack in a 4th with Kmet, like 2 receivers, Kmet, and put the running back and somebody else. You can really get unique with this first game. I think the only thing is that makes the Rush stuff interesting, and I know, Hoop, you already talked about it, but for me, it gets really easy after that. If I put Rush, I don't need to double stack him even. I can just play him with 1. And then if I'm saying that's what got me there, it's like I know I have to pick probably a Detroit running back and maybe like a PPR pass catcher. And then I'm really focusing up on the last game with Jacobs and Waddle or Tyreek or whatever. Like, it just makes it easier to build. I feel better about my process when I start there. And yeah, I saw that question. I'm fine with that. But if you want to go further, of course you can. What's your thoughts?
Well, the reason for the Rush stuff is so we got 3 games. So six total quarterbacks in. I wouldn't be surprised if the top quarterback score was like 22 or something. Is there guys that can go off? Yes. Tua he just went off. Love has gone off a lot. Caleb Williams gone off, Jared Goff. But in the 3-game slate, 22 could be the winner. Can Cooper Rush get anywhere close to that number? Well, he has in the last 2 weeks. And it opens up some opportunities because if I'm playing him, probably not going to have Rico, who's almost like if you go into an optimizer and just build teams, you're going to get a ton of Dodal. You're going to get a ton of Rico. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's 5,500. He's getting all the work. We're showing 50% ownership. So it's somewhat of a leverage. And I just think Dallas has success offensively. So I'm way higher on Dallas than most. And that's a stand that I'm going to be taking on the slate. I think Dallas pounds the Giants. So I'm going to be building my teams like that happens. I think they have success offensively and defensively. So that's the route I'm going. And I get like projections are not going to show that by any means. Like projections are not going to show Dallas. The spread in this game is still 3.5. Got that big half a point movement when Drew Lock came in. So I'm just in on Dallas in a big way. And that's kind of going to be my stand on this slate.
Talk about that. Tambo talked about his. I want to hear your thoughts too, because I've been going back and forth. You're good with just Rush and CD, or Rush and Schoonmaker, or Rush and Tolbert, or would it just be Rush, CD, or do you need to?
I'm fine. Definitely fine with one. Yeah, definitely fine with just one of those guys. If you want to do two, you can. Like if you started a team with like Rush and Schoonmaker, you're going to be able to get the studs. I mean, you'll be able to get and you don't play CD. You're going to be getting Amon-Ra. You're going to be getting a lot of Tyreek, and I mean, you'll get Neighbors if you keep them in there. I don't even know if I'll be keeping Neighbors in there, but you will get the studs of the slate. It's cheap. It's a cheap way to go. So
I want to say one thing, because I'm going to go to you on running back in a sec, Hoop. But that's what leading us down a good path from a strategy perspective on a slate like this. So Lee actually brought it up, and that's why I'm okay with it. Like raw points matter so much. There's probably going to be 5 players that you need, and maybe you can only get 4 of them into a lineup. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. That's sometimes how it is on these type of slates. And like he says, and it's what Hoop just alluded to, quarterback scoring can be pretty flat. It ends up being the ceilings you need elsewhere. Everyone assumes when you go Rush, you get the ceiling from Lamb, but it could be Rush to Tolbert, Schoonmaker, like those. It's cheap dudes in with them. Tolbert caught a touchdown. Schoonmaker caught one. Could be that. And now you get to build in the maximum amount everywhere, and you kind of know where you stand at that point. If you don't love picking between the Bears, maybe it's Jahmyr Gibbs or Monty or both. If it's Achane, Jacobs, Tyreek, you can start to really put in the ones you feel best about if it's not CD. So I kind of like, that's what I was hinting at, and everyone sort of led to it here, was when you are on the Cooper Rush stuff, you almost feel really good. It's either him and CD or stacking onto that, or you can avoid CD to just say Rush gets there and somebody else, and then you allows you to stack in all the studs that you can see those ceilings from. So I will say this, Hoop, as I kick it to you for running back, if you just took it from a broad, 10,000 foot perspective, it's the Lions smash and it's the run game. It's the Cowboys smash and it's the run game. And then even for the Packers Dolphins, like I think even though the passing game shows some, it's still Jacobs getting it. So I just feel like everyone thinks every game is just going to be run.
Yeah.
And the fastest Thanksgiving slate ever. Like, I know the games only start when they start, but it'll be the 3 fastest games of all time. Like, what's your thoughts as we go to running back? Because that's the setup here.
Yeah, and the one thing I did want to add on, like Caleb Williams and Cooper Rush are relatively close, only $500 in difference, and Caleb Williams is going to get a lot of ownership. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of the Detroit Lions. I'm a big fan, so this is somewhat biased, but man, they have just shut teams down like the past few weeks. Like when they have a lead, I don't know what the stat is, but like the second, I'm sure someone in the chat probably knows off the top of their head, but like second half playing with the lead, they have just shut teams down defensively. And if you're playing Caleb Williams, you're playing him under the mindset that they're playing from behind, which, rightfully so. They're 10-point underdogs, and they're going to be able to move the ball in the second half. But the Lions defense has just shut. I mean, it's like a snake that starts wrapping around your neck and then, cuts off the air supply. That's how good this defense had been in the second half of these games playing with the lead. So, I don't mind moving some of that to Cooper Rush. I mean, yes, Caleb Williams could get there, but the floor is low. I mean, he could end up with like 12 fantasy points or something on this slate if the Lions get a lead and do what they've been doing the last couple of weeks. So that is another reason why I'm going to be a little higher on Cooper Rush.
Hoop, the one-liners you've been getting better at, but the analogies are just getting dialed. This man talking about a snake wrapping around your neck and then just cutting off the circulation in the second half. These Lions, man, that's what
the Lions are going to do to title in the playoffs.
Hey, I'll just say this quick: that 3.5 line now down to 3.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Now time to refire. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm refiring right now.
Next thing you know, it'll be 2.5, and you'll keep firing.
That's what Hoop gets. Title. That's what Hoop gets for buying the little hook line over there. Now he didn't even need it.
Where's the 3?
Drew Lock money, man. That's all you needed to do.
Where's the 3? I don't see it.
DraftKings.
Time to go refire.
Yeah, time to
minus
fire.
minus 118 Cowboys, minus 102 +3 for the Giants.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me know when Drew Lock moves it to 2.5, and I'll fire even more.
Sounds good. Shoot you a
It's
text.
a bad day if you got to do the dong bong and lose all the tickets to Drew Lock. Man, that's going to be
all my Jake Paul money is going on Dallas tomorrow, just so everyone knows.
Where's it at though, Hoop? I do got to stick up for you for 2 seconds. This one second. Hoop just fired. Can Hoop just shit on someone so we can play them? What happened with J.K. Dobbins? I told you.
It wasn't even that. I mean, it sucks that he got injured too, because he was not going to be on optimal. I'll tell you that he's not going to be on optimal. The call was accurate. The shit on play for sure is Neighbors, man. I think Neighbors is a terrible play. Worst play of the slate.
There we go. Did you still want to talk about running back, or do you want me to go to title first?
I'm good with running back. We kind of talked about the Detroit situation, which is very important, obviously, at the running back position. Two guys that can get the job done. Talked about in the opening. Fine playing both of them. I mean, they're projected to score 30. I mean, these guys, we've seen it this year. It could be 2 to Gibbs, 2 to Montgomery. Will not be creating a rule to avoid that. I'd be fine playing both of them together. How much will I get? We'll see. I'm going to build teams this afternoon, this evening, but I will have some teams with both on there, I guess is the way I should say it. I do like, I don't know if it was your call or we kind of alluded to it with the Montgomery questionable tag. I think Montgomery is a really solid play. I don't think he's injured. I think he's totally fine. Pretty sure he came back in that game after. Dan Campbell never once indicated that he was in any risk of missing this game. He said it, I think, on Monday. He came out and said, Montgomery's good to go. Nothing to worry about there. So I believe that. I do think the difference in ownership grows between Gibbs and Montgomery because of that questionable tag. So I think Montgomery is a really solid play at 6,500. I could see it coming down. I mean, we're showing 29. I wouldn't be surprised if it's mid-20s, 24, 25 range. And to me, if that's the case on David Montgomery, he's a phenomenal play. We've seen it on these slates so many times where the winning score at running back is 12 or 13. If a lot of these guys bust, which could definitely happen, Swift could bust easily. Tracy could definitely bust. Dodo could, I like Dallas. He could easily bust. Achane and Jacobs. There's no slam dunk running back plays on the slate. Yeah. Do I think a couple of them go off? Yeah. But there's routes where 12 or 13 is a winner. David Montgomery, I think, is a really, really good play on the slate. I'll probably fade DeAndre Swift. Don't have much interest there. Tracy, not a ton of interest. More on FanDuel, I'd say. That 6,500 price tag can go a long way. I'm in on Dallas. I know Dodo's going to be popular. I'm actually, more interested, I think, in the Cooper Rush stuff, but Dodo will definitely be a part. If I think Dallas is smashing the Giants, which I do, Dodo has to be a big part of what I end up doing here. And then, Jacobs and Achane. How are we supposed to say a title? Achane?
It's the best.
Is that the proper pronunciation?
Dodo, and it sounds hilarious. It's like Dodo, but it's like Dodo the bird or something. You're from Rico Dodo for Dowdle. That's amazing.
Why is it Dowdle? Is it Dowdle?
It's Dowdle.
Dowdle? Is that how you pronounce it?
I like you saying Dodal though. That's
but it's more funny
I'm
when you
sticking
say
with Dodal.
Dodal. So
I'm sticking with Dodal.
The chat's gonna get tilted. It's amazing.
Definitely.
What about
definitely not changing that shit?
I know you talked about how these guys could obviously bust to the previous.
Both these guys are clear. Yeah, both are clearly in play, like Achane and Jacobs. I mean, Jacobs just absolutely went off. If they're playing with the lead, they'll feed him, and he has huge upside. So just kind of get tight. I mean, Achane at 77, I do think has a chance to maybe get squeezed a little bit on the slate. I think a lot. I think a lot of the Miami stuff gets squeezed a little bit, and I don't know. I think Tua comes in at a lower number than a lot of people are thinking. I know you're kind of on the opposite side of that. I just think Miami is the team that people at the end of the day can live without, and they're going to want to be on Detroit. The Chicago stuff makes sense because of the price tags. The Packers stuff for sure is going to be owned. I think that Miami is the team that people will say, all right, if I have to cut ties with some ownership, it's going to be with the Miami Dolphins. So I think Achane at 77 could come in a little bit lower. What are we showing? We're showing 32. I think it could end up maybe in the 20s. And definitely like him. He has so many outs, trailing game script, playing from the lead, pass catching stuff. He's perfect. So I mean, you got a lot of solid, but Montgomery I think is a big talking point for sure on the slate.
Yeah, it could be phenomenal for me. I mean, I kind of hope you're right at this point. It's the most condensed offense I think that I can find on the slate where I actually know what they would do. And I love your last call you just made is they could be up on the Packers. It's through those guys. They could be down on the Packers. It's not like they're, not serviceable. They can find their way back through those guys. It's a big boy game to round out the slate. I think, like I said, I think people are just honing in on this first one. And then, even with the blow up perspective, they're just getting so many pieces. You could see, and I'll kick it to you in a sec, Title, but you could see like the inverse of what I talked about earlier. Like you could see Montgomery and Kmet is what you need, and that's it. Montgomery crushes, and he's just the only one needed out of the first game, and so you just take that and move on to the next games with your staggered start and your late swap. And then Kmet is just $3,600 tight end, but getting a ton of targets. Everyone tries to pick between all the other guys or has Caleb or whatever, and tight end, there's lots of options on this slate. Don't get me wrong, but he's right there. He's less than Jonnu later on. He's $100 less than Tucker Kraft. You could easily see this. So I think this is what makes this slate fun. Like I said, it's not tricky. It's more of an interesting slate. But Title, instead, like the same, we know sort of give any different thoughts you have on running back. I think Hoop kind of handled what sort of the majority and then his takes. So give your takes. But then is there any sort of backups or alternative methods or things that you would roll with here and consider? People are always looking for that just on a 3-game slate. If there's anything we're not talking about or considering here.
In terms of backups, I don't think I'll be playing any, but if I did, it'd be Raheem Mostert or Roshan Johnson. Mostert, he'd be my favorite. You get the leverage off of some of the chain ownership, Jonnu ownership a little bit too. Like if that was the only Dolphins piece you played, use them, some goal line upside. Roshan would be second, and he gets goal line work as well, like plus 235 to score is good. The reason is I had him second. He doesn't leverage really DeAndre Swift ownership because he's not going to be owned. And I guess it leverages a little the Caleb Williams stuff. But even if he falls in once, he probably needs to fall in twice since a lot of his work is in the goal line. So I think it's spread out enough. Like give me Tyrone Tracy for all the leverage instead of messing with any of those guys. I think Tracy's one of the best GPP plays on the slate. Only a 3-point total spread.
But he's owned right with all those guys though. It's the same ownership as all the other dudes.
I think he gets squeezed.
I think it comes down. That's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like Rico for 300 less. I am projected for like 3 points higher. Everyone's gonna want to go Rico. Montgomery.
Didn't Tracy fumble last week too? And people are like, "Oh, that's going to end him now." And like, I don't know. I'm with you, Title. I think he gets squeezed out. And the funny thing, we use the stone for this. The better matchup is the other way. The number is 3. I know Drew Lock, all this, but you could play like a rush CD Tracy and just hope he gets there. Hoop hates neighbors. Like it's 17 points, but man, I don't know. I guess I'm leaning more that way too. Keep going. Sorry to cut you off. I just think that's actually interesting. I'm kind of with you on this now.
Yeah, no. So yeah, Tracy 2 weeks ago, he fumbled twice. Last week once. Don't love that at all. Rico fumbled once last week. Looking at the props though, between Rico and Tracy, again, I think Rico will be 3 times his own, if not more. 67.5 yards for Rico on the ground, 63.5 for Tracy. There's 4 yards. Touchdown prop minus 105 Rico, plus 120 Tracy. How do you completely flip the build in the same range? Is 300 more for Tracy. So I know I'll be playing a lot of him. I like both Lions running backs, of course. I will say props. Another thing that kind of surprised me. 19 more yards for Gibbs for a rushing prop. Obviously, we always know about the receiving stuff. Same for them to score minus 175. But that rushing gap has closed as the weeks go on. Maybe it's a little beat up. Maybe it's Gibbs been so good coming off his most touches. I don't know. Again, there's enough salary discrepancy, and I do think Gibbs will be owned where it's not like I'm not just going to be all in Gibbs and not Montgomery. But I did find that interesting. That 19 yards on the ground was a good bit, and I do prefer Gibbs. I love Gibbs, Jacobs, Achane. They're the 3 highest up there, but I think I'm not going to be playing as much Rico. I'll go Tracy there, but I'll just have some where I pick 2 of those running backs, play double tight end in the flex because I need to save money. Jacobs been a workhorse, 3.5-point favorites at home. Montgomery, Gibbs implied for 30. It feels hard for one of them not to get there. If they don't, I'll definitely be playing a lot of Goff. Like I think I might make a rule to have at least one Lion in every lineup. It feels really hard for me to see them. One of them not being on the winner, whether it's JMO really long, Amon-Ra goes 10 for 10 or 100, Gibbs or Montgomery gets there, Laporta, just so many outs. So I know I want a Lion, but if I'm not going Gibbs, Montgomery, they bust. I love Jacobs, Achane. You play the Goff passing side. Swift is hard for me because it is leverage, like he's low owned. That's leverage off of Caleb Williams stuff, some Keenan Allen stuff. But the goal line stuff is concerning. It's concerning with Roshan. His props aren't really good. It's 47.5 on the ground. He can catch passes when they're in trailing game scripts, which is why I'm not completely Xing him. If lines are up 14 in the second half, the reason I like Caleb, they're going to drop back so many times, like 4 targets last game. If he has 4 or 5 catches, 40 yards right there, that's 8-9 points. He falls in the box. 17 could be enough at this price tag. Again, I don't love it. I love the Tracy stuff. Both Lions running backs, Achane, Jacobs, Rico, and Swift are my least favorites. In a vacuum, though, Gibbs would by far be my favorite play if I had to pick one running back. He just looks so good. So many outs to score, pass catching. One play can take it everywhere. Whereas like the Jacob stuff, he feels more 7 each time, 7 a pop, and just slowly marches his way. I like the Lions' big shot play, and that's Gibbs. So, yeah, Tracy's going to be, I think, my biggest leverage play on the slate.
Yeah, I like that a little more as the slate goes on. Like you said, I think the other stuff just sort of sets up well. Like if you go with him, I'm fine with the Rush, Lamb, or whatever else you want to do there. If you're going, with the Swift stuff like you talked about, you could have Goff with his pass catchers and use Swift on the other side. If you're playing into the Packers passing, if Love is that high owned and all those receivers are pushing 30 to 40, and even Kraft pushing 20, then even though Jacobs is 40, that's fine. Like give me him, and then I can just go to Tua and what I like on the other side and get there that way and let Jacobs do it on the ground. The Packers have been running the ball a lot more, right, since Love is back. And I think they were, I was reading some stuff today too, even about Love's pass attempts all being down and everything like that. So that's kind of interesting, and we'll see if that ownership holds true. But I don't have too much else to add. I think, Hoop said it earlier. What's that?
I'll add one more for the Packers because they've ran the ball a ton at 100%. They're mixing in Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks. So it isn't just Josh Jacobs. They're running it a ton. Love's passing works go down, and Jacobs running the ball a decent bit. But 53% of snaps for him, 21% Wilson, 35% Brooks. Again, most of when Jacobs was on the field, it's running, and the other guys, it's more play action, stuff like that. But that's not only the case. Emmanuel Wilson's looked solid this year, and so is Brooks. So, before the playoffs, I think the Packers are wanting to rotate these guys in, take some of the workload off for Jacobs. Again, I really like him. Highest touchdown prop on the slate at minus 180. I just wanted to make that note. It's not all Josh Jacobs by any means.
Yeah, and I was trying to go back and look at something. Hoop, do you have anything else you want to add to it? If not, you can take us into wide receiver, but just trying to look some stuff up while we're doing this.
Yeah, not too much more. It seems pretty straightforward at the position. In terms of wide receiver, we'll start, with the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Tim Patrick. I think all solid plays. Like you're going to want exposure to the Lions. Like I think most teams, like if you go in and you build from an optimizer, you're going to get Lions exposure. But I think you definitely want to make sure if you're into setting rules, I definitely set like a rule to make sure you get at least one Lions player. Again, if you just go in and run an optimizer, you're going to get multiple most likely, but someone is going off on this team. Amon-Ra, Jamison Williams, and then I'm good with Tim Patrick as a punt, 3,500. It's these like breakaway plays like we talked about where Goff doesn't escape a ton, but when he gets out of the pocket, it seems like Tim Patrick is always open, and that's how Tim Patrick has had some relatively big plays. Like he had a 40-yard catch earlier, had like a 26 or 7 last week. So good with him at 35. On the Bears side, they have 3 guys. And the reason these Bears guys are appealing is the price tags, really. DJ Moore, 56, Keenan Allen, 51, Rome Odunze, 5K. If you're building teams that are heavy Lions, like you're just going to get these guys, and the price tags are pretty much a necessity on the slate. Playing some of these mid-tier wide receivers, assuming that you're playing a lot of teams, and they're all right there, all affordable. In a trailing game script, most likely, which is what you want. Again, Lions have done a good job shutting it down. There's no guarantee that happens in this game, and it's 3-game slate. We can't be that picky. It's not like you can say, "Oh, I think the Lions get a lead and shut it down." Well, it's a 3-game slate. Like, and if you're building multiple teams, like there's not much you can do. You're going to have to play some of these guys. I think they're all solid. Now, I'll just, I guess, continue to shit on the Giants. Like, very limited interest in any of their pass catchers. I hope the ownership holds true on a guy like Neighbors at, 30%, because I'll just take all that and play more Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb or, whoever else is in that range. I'm just not buying into any of the Giant stuff. And, again, I hope these ownership percentages hold true. Wan'Dale Robinson is fine at 47. You're not even getting like that much of a price break. You look at the Bears guys are similarly priced to like Wan'Dale Robinson and Slate. And so it's very difficult for me. CeeDee Lamb's obviously going to get ownership for Dallas at 7,300. I mean, it's just all volume stuff. I mean, he's getting a ton of looks, developing some chemistry, obviously, with Cooper Rush. 12 targets the last 2 games on a 3-game slate. Like, that's going to be tough to beat. So definitely want no, we have CeeDee Lamb less owned than neighbors. That can't be true, right? That can't. That's
why I asked that one earlier. I just said I don't know how we, like I said, we'll adjust. It's literally our initials that just went up before we hopped on the show. But I'm saying,
that's got to come up. He's not going to be 25.
Yeah,
he's not going to be 25. So that number will come up. This is just the starting point for us. That'll certainly be adjusted. But I think he's, regardless of what the number is, he's a really strong play, volume-based player. 3-game slate, like 12 targets in the last 2. Cooper Rush is looking to him, and they get him involved in a variety of ways. They'll do the end arounds and that sort of thing with him too. So I think he's a strong play. And then after that, the rest of the pieces for Dallas, pretty low. And we got to see on Brandon Cooks whether he's activated or not. But Tolbert and then Turpin as a punt. And these are guys that are just going to be better suited if you're higher on the Dallas stuff like I am. So Tolbert, Turpin, and then we got to see on Cooks. And then I really like the Miami stuff. I mean, I think, again, I'm sticking with the mindset that I think they get squeezed a little bit on the slate. Tyreek Hill, squeaky wheel. I mean, it was everyone else last week on Miami besides Tyreek Hill. I think it could be Tyreek Hill time. 6,900. Again, I think they have a chance to get a little squeezed on the slate. And the one thing I've noticed, again, no numbers to back this up, but on these like Thanksgiving day slates or staggered slates where it's one game, people like loading up early and sometimes avoid some of those later plays. They come in a little bit lower on. We talk about it in baseball all the time. I made so much money a couple of years ago on the Dodgers because their lineup wasn't out at lock. No one wanted to stack them. They wanted to get the early guys in, and they forget about the later guys. And I think it has a chance to be the case, and especially on the Miami side. So I'm in on Hill, Waddle. And that's a nice thing. I don't know, one of you guys brought it up, is like if you're playing the Miami stuff, it's very clear what to do. There's not like there's a random wide receiver to go to. There's not like there's a backup tight end. It's Tua, and you can play him with the running back in Achane, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Smith. So it's very clear. There's no, like, even with the Cooper Rush stuff, I like Dallas, but there's question marks after CeeDee Lamb. Like, what do you want to do? Do you really want to play Tolbert? Do you really want to play Turpin? Like, there's question marks in terms of how you stack them. With Miami, there's no question marks. You can play him with the running back, play him with 2 different wide receivers, and then you got a strong tight end play in Jonnu Smith. So I'm kind of talking myself, I think, into more Miami as we go. And then the Packers pass catchers, Jaden Reed, Watson, Wicks. We talked about Melton. And I will say, Newens, it was Newens I mentioned, Malik Heath, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Two catches and brought them both in last week. So he will be on the field. I'm assuming he is.
He's 3.3K. And he played 23 snaps last week when Dobbs went down.
Yeah, so if you're playing that Millie Maker, I think you could throw Heath in there as well. So all those pass catchers for me, Reed, Watson, Wicks, Melton, and, in the $5 Millie, I'd be even fine playing Malik Heath. So a lot of plays, obviously, at the wide receiver position. But the spot that stands out, I think, the most to me after talking through it is definitely Miami pass catchers.
Quick.
Go ahead.
I just wanted him to rank because he mentioned Tim Patrick. You liked a good bit. You mentioned Turpin. Tolbert's cheap. And then we'll mention both Melton and Heath down there, 3-1, 3-3. Do you have leans on how you'd rank that? Or just whatever?
Yeah. Melton, and then Tim Patrick, and then the Dallas guys, and then it would be Heath.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Melton is definitely my favorite full punt on the slate because I've seen it. And I saw it last week. I mean, it's like they try to get this guy deep bombs when he's out there. And on this slate, if he catches one, like, it's going to be most likely optimal.
Yeah, it's good ways to set it up too, especially Jacobs is going to get that ownership late. That's another thing. Just if you like the Miami side, you'll land on them in some of your portfolio, but that you should want to land on the Packers side as well. And that's a way to get there, right? You go Love with one of Reed or something, and then you put him in with Melton. You're already going to be different. You could even have Tyreek on the run back if you wanted. I was just going to say the thing about you nailed it. I just keep saying it, but it's condensed on the Miami side. it's more than cheap enough. Like people play on a main slate, people are playing Burrow at way more than Tua, and they're playing Chase at way more than Tyreek, and they're fitting in Higgins for more than Waddle. Like you could literally play all three, and Waddle will never do that again. He doesn't have to do that again. He doesn't have to have that exact same score. We're down to 3 games. He could have a great score and not that score and still be necessary here. So I think just stacking this game up, most will use Jacobs on the run back. I think using someone like Reed, you want to use Melton, you can use up all your wide receiver spots and leave the running back slots open for the Cowboys, the Giants, the Lions, whatever else you want to fit in there and make your lineup look pretty nice that way. And yeah, it's scary because you're fading the first game, but I'm sure you'll have other lineups within your portfolio where you can attack that first game. And then, Title, I'll kick it to you, but I was going to say, too, the Tim Patrick one I like, but the chat brought up the good point, too, for the old Jameson Williams bombs. Look at Addison last week, just another spot that you could get back to it. It's not the same thing will happen. It's one game, whatever, but it is a spot where you could see that, and everyone's playing Amon-Ra, especially when they're going Goff. You always do a good job talking about this. Like, okay, Goff's not going to – it's spread out, but how many of those Goff lineups have Amon-Ra in them when they're looking for leverage and doing their thing? So going away from the wide receiver 1 to Williams, and then wherever you go from there is up to you. But that's another way that you could see it happen this week. I'll let you talk more on wide receiver.
For sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, would anyone be surprised? Maybe a little surprised, but if Jameson Williams was the number 1 scoring receiver on the slate, like it legit can take 2 plays from him. He's that good. So yeah, I definitely love the Jameson Williams. He doesn't break the bank. Amon-Ra, Tim Patrick will be playing some of them. Not really any hot takes there. Bear stuff. I think Keenan Allen will be the highest owned. And I look at DJ Moore and Adunze as pretty much the same play. So I'll overpay a little bit for Moore as a pivot. I think you can save, hardly anything, but right there for Adunze for 100 less. Yeah, I'm going to probably have more Adunze and more if the ownership does hold true. I think Keenan's fine. Obviously all better in Caleb Williams stuff. Hoop and I, we agree on some. We definitely disagree on Giant stuff. I like Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson a lot. Neighbors and CeeDee Lamb have the same prop. 68.5 yards for Neighbors, 67.5 for Lamb. Touchdown prop is a little better for Lamb. That's where it's different. 180 to 225. Receptions are the same. Mine are 6.5. The same juice. I think Drew Lock's going to pepper Neighbors, as every quarterback that really has stepped in for the Giants does, because there's not any other options really. I love Neighbors a lot. I could see 10 to 15 targets for sure in this game, and I do think Lamb's higher owned. Same thing for Lamb, though. Cooper Rush is like CD a lot. I think 2 very strong plays. If you want to leverage Rico in this game and you just go Lamb, Neighbors, and you fill out your lineup after that, I could totally see some scenario there. I like Wan'Dale a good bit, too. He's on the field almost 100% of the times in the slot. Again, I think Drew Lock's an upgrade. Ownership's not really there. I'll be playing plenty of Wan'Dale Robinson. The Slate and Hyatt stuff I don't really necessarily love. Actually, last week when Slayton returned, Hyatt and him had relatively pretty close. Slayton still outsnapped him, but Hyatt had a decent amount of snaps. So I would throw Jalen Hyatt at 3.2K in that full punt range. His snap count again went up from all year, and all of his routes are pretty much go routes. Drew Lock isn't afraid to throw a go route. 1 catch, 50 yards and a touchdown can absolutely shake up the slate. Again, it's better in Drew Lock things, but if we're talking Heath, Patrick, Turpin, all that, I think Hyatt should be named as well. I don't like Cooper Rush and the Cowboy stuff as much, so pretty much just CD or bust for me. I think Tolbert's fine because he's on the field a ton. If Cooks is back, though, I won't be playing Cooks. Turpin, really. Tolbert, I prefer as the wide receiver, too. Dolphins, yeah, really easy. Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, OBJ's been dropping balls and stuff. I can't get to anything else after that. And Packers, there's a million different options you can go to for sure. Without Romeo, it's Reed and Watson. They should be in the 2 receiver sets. Wicks gets a big bump because of that. I think will come with a decent amount of ownership. But again, Bo Melton, Malik Heath, they all rotated in a bit. Like Watson and Reed aren't always on the field either. They will be running Heath with Reed, Watson with Reed. You'll have random wide receiver room in Green Bay. They'll all be rotating in. I'm going to play, I think, a decent amount of Love stuff because you can go so many ways, but it's also like you can play Love stuff and mess it up so much because it is hard to get right. So, but the $5 with 1 billion people in the thing, I guess that's the stuff you want to embrace. So, yeah, receiver room, it's really concentrated, I think, at almost every spot but the Packers.
Yeah, lots of room, lots of places to go and room to get different. But it's some of the stuff you said is just for, especially for the bigger, larger field stuff or anything like that. Like Keenan Allen, if he's going to be that popular, he could just end up catching this. Everyone saw what he did last week and assumes that happens this week. He could end up being the same as Wan'Dale Robinson, but for 3 times the ownership. Wan'Dale just catches balls and falls on them. McKinnon through the slot. It may not be what he did last week. There's situations like that. Last week, Lamb, we were making fun of him in our Discord at SHIPIT Nation because we were saying he's basically like Wan'Dale Robinson. He was, what was he at, 9 for 41 at one point? It's like, holy shit, this guy can't get any yardage. It's just they're throwing it to him over there and he's landing on it or the defense is getting to him. So I like the Jameson, Tim Patrick stuff in the first one. I like Rome Odunze quite a bit only because I think it's, very similar to last week and people loved him last week on FanDuel specifically. He was a cheaper option. Everyone wanted to go there. And of course, Keenan Allen got him and ate his lunch. DJ Moore had a good day as well. So I liked your pay up or pay down at that one. So I'm good there. I kind of like Wan'Dale, who you mentioned just as maybe a guy that Locke just checks it down to. I was trying to look up earlier just so everyone knows what I was doing. I was looking up, someone in the chat got me sparked on this thing. I'm always trying to find these tidbits. Does Locke just check it down? And obviously you got to go as far back as 2020. I'm on StatMuse trying to look up all these scores. Melvin Gordon was getting a few checkdowns back in the day, but honestly, when he was coming in for the Seahawks and everything like that, it was only 2 or 3 to Kenneth Walker. Like he was going to the receivers. And so I think Neighbors and Robinson, again, I'm kind of more on hoop side on the Neighbors thing. I struggle. I don't think he's going to have that ownership. So if I get him in my rush lineups, I kind of want him as like it is, the Cowboys do their thing and Dowdle Neighbors. But even then I'd be fine with Dowdle Robinson. So I prefer that. I like Tyreek and Waddle. I'm with you. I'm not doing the OBJ stuff there. And then I think the Packers is probably the most interesting spot because one, I don't fully believe that everybody just rolls with this Packers passing offense. I know that Jacobs is still showing the most ownership, so that holds true. But I think some of that stuff does shift. I like Reed, I like Watson, and I like Melton. I like Wicks the least, actually, even though I know how good he is and capable. It's if that ownership comes anywhere near that or holds true. They just what you said, Title. They do so much over there to move these guys around, and I think it'll be like a deep shot. And so, one of Watson or Melton catching the deep bomb, and Melton's way cheaper. I just think that's how I see it. And I honestly love Reed at 5,700, regardless of where his ownership goes to. He's a guy that gets used a bunch of different ways on a short slate like this. Talking about a guy that can get you 25 plus and you need it. That would be a guy for me for sure, Jaden Reed. So I definitely like the Packers. It's harder to spread them around and make it work and get it in that way. But like a Love, Reed, and then pick one of Watson or Bo Melton. Like, look how cheap it is for Love, Reed, and Melton. And even if you're like, that's crazy, go Watson instead. Sure. 4,900, 5,700, and 63 at quarterback. And by the way, Tyreek is less than 7 on the other side, or however you want to do it. Like that game has a ton of interest to me. Even though I know like the Lions stuff, but it's easy to build it out once you make that stand and say, I'm going to be in on the Dolphins Packers. I really liked your call too, Hoop, about the Dodgers back in the day, the baseball slates. Just bringing different DFS sport into this one, but it is exactly what it's like, right? It's Thanksgiving. Let's get the day started, baby. I want points right now. Give me those lineups, right? And there it is right there. M. Bruno.
Yeah. There's some validity to that. I'm telling you, people like getting the early, they feel good. They start their day off. All right, I'm at the top of the leaderboard. I'm making some money. Like, I want to lock that shit in.
They want to show the screenshot to their family member or say they made the right call. Everybody has this relative who doesn't really play DFS, but like, yo, I got the anytime touchdown on Jameson Williams. It's like, doing that. And then they got their lineups that they built with a full-on game stack of it on top of it all. So go ahead, Title. Sorry.
No. I think also it allows more late swap flexibility. Like if a lot of people do load up Lions Bears. And again, I like the game a lot too. But if you went a little more underweight on that game, Giants Cowboys isn't getting much. You can see where you stand. If you need help, to get off of Rico and there's pivots, the Tracy stuff, Jacobs, a chain. But all the receivers in the Packers-Dolphins game are relatively kept in check. Like CeeDee Lamb will be a little like some ownership, but Neighbors kept in check as a pivot there. The late swap stuff definitely can't go unnoticed, whether you're absolutely looking great and you want to swap on some chalk or it's not going as good and you have to pivot. So that's another reason, I guess, maybe if you want to do that.
Yeah. Did anybody have a thought on this? So I know we kind of hit on it when we scrolled through it, but I guess, we talked more. I'll go to you, Title, on this one because we talked more Neighbors and Wan'Dale. Obviously you mentioned a little bit about Slate and Hyatt, but any final thoughts just on Slayton as a whole?
Yeah, it was just a little, obviously he was out 2 weeks with an injury, but he came back last week, 34 snaps and Hyatt at 25, where if you look previously, Slayton was almost always playing all of them. So with Neighbors back, Wandale in the slot, it looks like they're rotating an extent to Slayton and Hyatt. I think Slayton's fine too. The reason I mentioned Hyatt and preferred him was because of the big savings. But Slayton's been a lot better of a receiver this year. I mean, Hyatt's been he hasn't done anything. So I think Slayton's fine, but I prefer Wandale right in that range. Like, I'm not excited about Slayton.
Real quick, large field and the idea of like just needing a one hitter quitter, like that's your guy, sure. But with no left tackle and Drew Lock getting in there and this defense coming after him, you need time, man. Like, you need time to unleash that bomb. Anything can happen. It's DFS, it's large field. I'm not even copping out. I'm just saying that's why I would struggle with it more. And it may even be bad for those other guys, but that's why, like I said, I kind of like the Wandale. He's 1/3 the ownership of Keenan Allen for $400 less, and he may just catch you 8 balls for 60, and it's good, man. 4,700 is good. It's solid, and hopefully gets you some other stuff in there. So if I'm going that route, I feel more comfortable at least going that way. So that'd be my thoughts. Let's go to tight end though. Title, do you want to take it, or who wants to go?
I could take it, and then Hoop can mention it. It's boy Laporta. He has been so dust and tilting, but yeah, I mean, he can talk me into a little bit of him. Right now, he's definitely the odd man out. We've been all over Jonnu Smith recently. Jonnu's a complete monster. Could even add more last week. It's coming with ownership. I think he's a guy you can drop from, I don't know, maybe like a DJ Moore down to him or something. Like, leaving money on the table. This isn't necessarily a showdown slate with 3 games, but it is a lot more game theory than it is a main slate. So leaving money is a lot more viable than when we talk on Sundays. Tucker Kraft's one of my favorite tight ends. He's a complete beast. Got in the box last week. Just, hey, a billion different Packers guys. What I love about Kraft is he will be on the field a ton. While all those other receivers are mixing, he will lead the wide receiver room if you throw him in there in snaps. So, and the price tag's down there. I like myself Tucker Kraft a good bit. I like Cole Kmet and Schoonmaker, and that's why I mentioned 2 tight end builds earlier. I think I'll have a lot of them. Laporta would be my least favorite out of all of them. Theo Johnson's on the field, and Span Ford, I'll let Hoop talk about him, 50%. Tight end is a loaded position. I love Jonnu. I love Kraft. Kmet's on the field a ton, and Schoonmaker, by far my 4 favorites. Again, Laporta's the odd man out. I'm going to play some. I just prefer J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Montgomery. I won't say Tim Patrick, but all those other guys. Yeah, again, Theo, Spanford, and play. 2 tight ends definitely there, but the 4 clear ones for me is Jonnu, Kraft, Kmet, Schoonmaker, and I'll be heavy on them.
Yeah, I keep saying it, but this first game, Hoop, like, it could just end it all. Like, it's honestly, it could just be Goff, Jameson Williams, Laporta, and you need him. And Laporta finally has a day. Like, we've been waiting for it. He sucks. He's terrible. It's only going to be Gibbs and Monty. They're going to smash them, but there's no way it could be anybody but these 3 guys. Yet it easily could. So give me your thoughts at Laporta first, and then the rest of the tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, Laporta is obviously disappointing season overall fantasy-wise, but he has had games. I mean, he's had 16 in 2 out of the last 4 games. Like, if he gets 16 tomorrow, you probably need him. He's probably on the winner, and he's it's basically, he's looking at the game log. It's every other game he does something. So he had 12 and then 3, 16, then 4, 16, and then 5. So if you want to follow that trend, he's getting double digits, and double digits is probably good at the tight end position. I mean, am I excited about him? No. Like, I'm not. I'm least excited about him than anyone on the Lions team, but obviously going to be playing him. And that's kind of honestly how I feel about all the tight ends. Like, they're all like similar. They're all similarly priced. I have a similar outlook on them. Like, gun to my head, who scores the most? Okay, maybe Jonnu Smith. He's looked great. Tua's just throwing to him a ton, but Jonnu, Laporta, Kraft, Kmet, Schoonmaker. I don't know. I'm going to play them all. They all seem similar to me. I'm fine with 2 tight end builds. Then the ones that are a little more off the wall, I'm good with Theo Johnson. Like, I've shit on the Giants a lot. And I will say, because I didn't talk much about them, like, I'm good with Wandale and I'm good with Slayton. Like, the ones I just don't really care for, like Neighbors and Tracy all that much. The ones that have like a price tag on them. Like, if I'm playing heavy Dallas stuff, I am going to play some of these cheaper Giants guys, and Theo Johnson's one of them. And then Spanford. I mean, we talked about him on the main slate last week because he's 2,500, played 50% of the snaps, 2 targets, 2 catches. He's on the field a lot. I'm definitely fine with him, and it's not a massive price difference between him and some of these other guys, but it's a 3-game slate. Like, if he goes out there, catches a touchdown, he's going to be unowned. And it could go a long way. I mean, perfect guy for sure for the $5 milli. I'll be playing him on, my regular 150, and I'd include him if I was playing 20 teams. Like, I feel that good about the guy, to be honest with you. So I'm in on all these guys. No strong lean, no strong preference, no hot takes here from me whatsoever. I think they're all solid plays. They're all priced similarly, and for me, their fantasy outlook is relatively similar as well.
Yeah, Laporta also dropped a walk-in touchdown that 1 week, or Goff kind of overthrew it slightly, and he got a little bit awkward with it. Like, that could have been even another add-on or bigger game. So I think there's little things like that. I know people don't like them. Again, that's why I sometimes never fully believe the first thoughts on the ownership as well. Obviously, hone it in as the week goes on. It's a piece of the puzzle, and we only have one short turnaround, one evening until this slate starts tomorrow. So we'll have it all dialed in and ready to go. But I just think, just looking at it, Kmet, Tucker Kraft, even the Jonnu stuff, if it's going to be that high, I'm playing the Dolphins, of course he's going to be in my Tua lineups. That's just how it works, right? You set it up, or opposite of my Jordan Loves. That's just pretty standard stuff. But I'm telling you, when people there's no way Jalen Waddle does that again. Yes, I understand fully. He does not need to do that again, though, on a short slate like this. So I'm fine with some of those lineups having Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, and then just moving it over to Kraft on the other side, or having Laporta from the earlier games, as opposed to most of those lineups will be filled with Gibbs or Montgomery and little things like that. So I'm always looking for ways to think about how other people are thinking about the slate and what their lineups will look like. And you can do that with an optimizer. We have Shiptimizer over at Shipit Nation. You can use that and lock in Tua and Tyreek, build 10 lineups. This is why I always say it doesn't matter if you're building 150. Obviously, it makes your life a lot easier to build 150 with an optimizer. It's pretty much a necessity. But what I think people confuse it with is it's just only for that. And that's just not the case. If you want to know what people are actually doing on the slate, grab an optimizer, lock in Tua and Tyreek, and say, okay, if someone is building a Tua and Tyreek lineup, what do those look like? Well, it's jamming in Gibbs, it's jamming in Jacobs, it's jamming in Dowdle. Now this is what it leaves. Well, how do you go against that? And how could you see the slate flip a little bit in that instance? And that's how you start to build out and say, okay, my ideas still make sense. They leverage what everybody else is doing that's not editing their stuff with an optimizer, or not doing too much editing with it. And now I can start to make my plan of attack. Did you have something there, Hooper? Okay, you're good. I wasn't sure. I thought you were going to
agree.
Yeah, no, all good. I thought you might add a point. So yeah, I think that's how I'm looking at it. I think Kmet, Laporta, and Tucker Kraft would be my main three that I'm looking at. And then the other guys all fit in where they fit in. But I'm saying that's kind of what I'm doing. Obviously, the next most interesting, I guess, for me would probably be Dallas, because the Jonnu stuff is popular, but it's because he's going to be with my Miami and Green Bay stuff anyway. But the Dowdle thing, where if you just don't play Dowdle and you play one of Schoonmaker and Span Ford and just use that to build up the ceiling, I always talk about this. So I guess I'll round it on that and then go to you for defenses or anything, Hoop. But the using just a cheap guy like a Schoonmaker or a Span Ford, I have to play a tight end no matter what. I'm not in love with them. None of us really are in love with any of them. We just all were, ranking them a little bit and saying where we're at with it. We don't think it's going to blow the slate away, and it can. But I'm saying I'm also fine with just putting in one of these guys for Dallas, not playing Dowdle, and just filling up with the ceiling, the rest of my lineup, where I can get all these guys that you might have to have. So, Hoop, go to you. Any other tight end thoughts? If not, round it out with defense.
I just responded to one comment. I don't have to go to the bathroom yet, but it's good. Yeah, it's getting close. It's almost time. With the tight ends, I don't know. It's I think we all kind of feel similar. I don't think anyone looks at these tight ends and say that, this is the guy, he's a standout play. To me, they all are solid. I'm going to play them, based on how I'm building teams. I guess, I want my tight ends to kind of correlate with the rest of my team. I think that's one way to do it. When talking about tight ends specifically, I think that's what you were kind of touching on there. Tambo. So I think that's kind of the way to do it. Use the tight end position to tie up correlations within your team, even if it's not on the main team, secondary stacks and things like that. So that's probably a good way to use the tight end, use it as leverage, use it as lineup correlation, because they all seem pretty similar. In regards to defense, I don't know. It's a tough position. I think the Cowboys probably end up pretty popular. Lions will end up popular. I'm assuming, Green Bay, Dallas, probably not too much. Bears, probably not too much. So it's probably Lions, Cowboys, Giants, in terms of ownership. But again, I'm just going to play him as the optimizer allows. Like, I'm going to make sure to, I don't get like 80% of one defense. I want to spread it out to some degree, but it's a very tough position to predict. So no hot takes there.
Yeah, one easy way to cut into the Jacobs ownership if you're going there later, and if you are believing the stuff in like my non-Dolphins lineups, I think it's just add in the Packers D. It's in Green Bay. They've been pretty solid throughout the season. Maybe they pick up more steam as the slate goes on, but I think the problem there is you've got the Cowboys title at just $100 more, so you know what's going to happen, and I do believe that that's going to be the case. They just assume the Cowboys are going to eat, and they should, but it's a 3-game slate, and it could be the difference of 2 points that Green Bay ends up getting a pick 6 that beats the Cowboys by 2, and that can be huge across the board. Even though it's only 2 points, it can make up for it on the slate just in general, because most people are going to be on the Cowboys. So I'll kick it to you. Any final thoughts on defense for the slate?
Yeah, I mean, also the problem is they're playing Mr. Big Daddy Drew Lock, and that could be a little tough for the Cowboys. So no, Cowboys the highest owned, Lions the second highest owned. I mean, give me the Lions all day over Caleb Williams with an awful offensive line. And this dude swears he's invincible half the time. Like, he's spinning, trying to juke out like 3 defensive linemen. It's actually worked a decent amount. I'll give him credit. I don't think it'll work this week. So if he wants to dance around back there, Lions can be in for a big day. You can definitely go Caleb Williams, pick 2 of Keenan, Moore, Odunze, Kmet, and play Lions defense. How does it get there? Lions pounce on him early. They get up a lot. Caleb still has to throw the ball a bunch from behind. He already gets sacks, picks, fumbles. And so I'll be doing that 3-game slate. You definitely can play your defense against your quarterback. I'll be underweight Cowboys. I prefer Lions as the second highest owned. And I think the best plays outside of Lions, give me the cold weather. 2 dome games, 1 game that's 20 degrees. You can play a chain with Dolphins for the same reason you said Jacobs and Packers. And to be honest, man, like I mentioned that Caleb Williams, half the time Jordan Love thinks he's Brett Favre and will just chuck it down the field a million with like triple coverage. So I think Dolphins defense is really interesting. If they can get from ahead and make the Packers drop back, Love definitely can make mistakes. So yeah, give me Lions and both defenses in the cold weather game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at a couple things now that I'll add because I'm looking for these little nuggets and tidbits across the board. But I believe if you go up 3, down 3, so just a little late swap nugget for you. Rico Dowdle, Cowboys D, exact same price as Tracy Jr. and Giants. So you literally just flip the build for the exact down 3, up 3, right? You go, is that right or no? No, it's not, but it's close. Like it's got to be close, right? 55. Sorry, it's 300 the other way. But either way, if you got money left on the table, or you got an opportunity, just a close call there. But what I was going to say first,
you're right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Am I tweaking? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sorry, I had it right the first time. Sorry, because I was already thinking about my second thought, which was kind of my first thought, but I went there once I noticed it, was going to be a lot of people that go to the Packers for defense, I think will still keep Dowdle in there. They'll just flip the D and make it a little bit different, but not everybody does running back defense. So another sneaky thing to do would be to play the Packers D with Tracy, right? Because you're saying that it's not going to be Detroit. It's not necessarily going to be the Cowboys. So it's just another flip that you could do. So if you've got the Packers D, you'll see a lot of people think, I didn't go with the popular Cowboys, but I'll keep the popular Dowdle. You could actually flip it and have Tracy on the opposite side. Say it's that leverage that's beating up the Cowboys D and why they're not needed on this slate. And you've got the difference over to the Packers for 3K. So yeah, I think there's some stuff you can do here. Always fun breaking down these Thanksgiving slates. Title, do you got any final thoughts on the slate as a whole?
Yeah, always enjoy it with the family, friends, food. You don't be just staring at your phone or whatever. But hey, late swap is a thing. So after the game ends, usually we have a little time before the next game. There's showdown contests. If you think you have a big edge in showdown, 3 solid prize pools for all of them. Last game, very good. We'll have content up for that. But yeah, you cannot forget about late swap stuff during the games. Maybe enjoy it with friends and family a little bit. But hey, enjoy the day for sure. Be safe tonight if you're going out. Let's win some money tomorrow.
Yeah, Hoop, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, good luck to everyone. It's a fun day for football, fun day to spend with the family, and fun day to throw in some gambling, and that kind of ties it all together. So it'll be a fun one. good luck to everyone, obviously. And one thing I did want to point out is, late swap. Make sure you're kind of checking in to see if you have some, potential pivots or late swap situations that you could take advantage of. One of the best ways to do that for sure is if you kind of hit something off the wall early on, like low own stack or low own play. Well, then you can kind of come back to more mainstream type plays and tie it all together. So that's, one situation to look at, or the opposite. If your chalky stuff hits early on, you can make some pivots to some lower owned things or something along those lines. So, good luck to everyone. Enjoy the day tomorrow. And let's, get those Ship It Nation logos to the top.
Yeah, do us a favor too, just real quick. If you guys are watching this, even on playback or replay after, whatever you want to call it, we're at 8.93K. So only 70 subscribers away from hitting 9,000. Remember, we got some shows tomorrow, the cash show, the Friday night football stuff brought into it. And then Sunday, the main slate. I would love to be Sunday at 9,000 so we can do the 6-month giveaway, because the package over here, now that I'm on it, I'm just going to roll to it. If you go to Ship It Nation, the Black Friday special is on. BF50 gets you 50% off your first month all access. You just go here, join the nation. The monthly goes to $34.50. The monthly, if you want our optimizer, Shiptimizer, goes to $49.50. But what we're giving away when we hit 9,000 is the 6-month all access plus optimizer. You get Shiptimizer, everything for 6 months. If you play some PGA DFS, you play some NBA, you play all these other sports that we carry. MMA is going on year round. All these other ones. NASCAR will be coming back. Round out the NFL season. All that and more. If you can play college football in your state. And then, of course, our guy Nade's got NHL covered. There's going to be a lot there. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you get involved. If you want to check out the site, now's the time to do it. Use BF50 or get the rest of season package, which is right here under single sport. You don't need any code at all to lock this in. Instead of $160+ to get through to February with the Super Bowl, you can just pay $99. And if you want the optimizer for Classic and Showdown NFL slates, a ton of that coming up with all these, 3 gamers, 2 gamers, Showdown, the playoffs, all that and more, you're able to get it for $129. So best time to get it is now, guys. We appreciate you all. Happy early Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for watching. For Hoop, for Title, and for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it!